This is your receiver. It works on a battery. And you will see on here, you'll be able to see whatever the camera sees. Plus, it'll have all the data. It'll say how high you are, how fast you're going, et cetera, et cetera. It'll tell your GPS signal will come in there. So now the things that we left off is within here, you have 4 or 5 things that work. You have a gyroscope. I won't go on, not enough time to talk about gyroscope. You have a thing that will measure your speed. You have a thing that will measure altitude. So you have 4 or 5 different sensors in there that will help you. And then you can add to that your compass, for example. You can add a GPS. And with that, then the drones will almost fly automatically. So you can get a program, for example, and like a program we had at Dana Peak, where I set that, you can actually set those points. Where we did the mapping, I set point 1, point 2, point 3, and then you can tell the camera, I want you to point at this point in the middle of it. If you've got a circle, and it will fly those points. And you can say, I want here, I want you to be at 50 foot above the ground. Here, I want you to be at 100 foot, maybe a hill there. So you go up, take a picture there, or video, whatever. Come over here, wherever you told it to be, come back. And then with the mapping programs, when it's done doing this, all this is automatic. You just say take off. It takes off, takes all these pictures, like we showed yesterday or last week on the mapping. It'll take the pictures and then send them back to you. We'll put them on the SD card, and it will automatically return to home. So if you're going to buy one, and you buy one, if you want that on there, what they call RTH, return to home, where no matter what happens, it's going to come back and it's going to sit here, and it'll land, or I'll tell it to land. So.
Is this here height, is it measured for sea level, or for, is it actual height from the ground, or is from sea level? In other words,
I think that, yeah, we went over that last week on the mapping, on above sea level and so on. The last
airplanes,
the last
sea level.
I read on that question, because I've had this question too. How do I know how high those trees are? How do I know how high that radio antenna, TV antennas over there by my house? And we went over maps. I gave them copies of aerial maps and so on. If I am correct, I'm still not an expert in this. When you get this thing ready to fly, you have to do what they call arm the motors. Because they won't fly until you tell them to fly. Because they're very dangerous. You set it down, and it calibrates horizontal.
With a starting point.
Yeah. Or you might have to calibrate some of the other things on this here, north, south, east, west, 0, 90, 180 degrees. So once you calibrate it, and the bottom line is, that's what it's calibrated against. So at least in my knowledge right now is, when you say the altitude on there is the altitude above whatever that spot where you started.
Where you started from.
Which would be above the land, basically.
I was just curious, sea level.
On these aerial maps, the maps I gave out last week, they have legends for sea level versus contour level.
Now, does it have sense enough to know when to come home?
Hard.
The battery's getting low.
Well, these cheapies don't. Some of these are only $30, $40. But when you, the one I'm looking at for $900, okay, it's a fold-away one of a very expensive one. The ones like you're talking about are around $1,500, maybe $1,000 to $1,500, somewhere in there. Okay? It does, yes. And a lot of them, the cheapy too, if they have RTH on it, you just push a button and it's going to come back home. Okay? So, once you get all these sensors in, these don't have too many sensors, but once you start, they also have what we call obstacle avoidance. In other words, one of them may only have one on the front, one of them I've got at home, it's got one here, one there, one there. If it goes there, it won't hit the wall. Or if it's coming near you, it'll back up. They're obstacle avoidance, just like we had in the robots. And then you'll have the cameras underneath and sensors that will measure how high above the ground they are. They've got all kinds of devices. And every time you add something, the main thing is, not only does it add expense, it adds weight. This is where the battery thing comes in. And this is what we're trying to teach the kids physics on. Because there's one video on YouTube that I got, I'm going to show them, is you take a battery, and just like, this is where we talk about accuracy and statistics, all that. That battery may be rated for, let's say, 5.7 volts, but it might put out 8 or 9 volts. And as the battery is being used up, or the amps, the same way, the milliamp, and the battery is being used up, all that's going to go down. So somehow you've got to know that. Hopefully some of the computer software programs will tell you this battery is 50%, like on your phone. Or you've got to start using the milliamps and say, okay, it's getting out there so far. Now, the better ones, let's say, they'll start beeping. They'll start sending a signal here, beep, 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 beep. If you look on a screen, on a TV screen with the OSD, some of them will say, take me back home, take me back home, yeah. And then the better ones will say, they'll just come back home. Say they won't give you the option because you're going to waste a couple $1,000 if it doesn't come back. So it's getting very complicated. It's no longer just a little old drone.
Well, yeah, I live out there near Stillhouse Lake. Some of the guys come out there and fly those things around at night, and I think, well, if that thing fizzles out over the lake, you're just SOL.
That's what I wanted to bring up on this, but anyway. As always, there are people who are violating the law. I'm going to show you right now. You cannot fly a drone, a real drone. Okay, now the ones that you fly in the house, the FAA says, I think it's if it weighs more than a half a pound, you've got to be registered, number one.
Yeah.
Two, the bigger and heavier it is, the more you have to follow the rules. So the rules are very rigid on drones. I'll show you in a minute here. In my house, for example, we have Killeen Airport over there, Killeen Municipal Airport. Then we've got the private airport over here. Then we've got Seton Hall Hospital here. We've got Metroplex there, heliports.
Right.
We've got two heliports. Oh, and then we got Fort Hood.
Right.
With their heliport over there. So around any of those kind of airports, you can't fly a drone within 5 miles. So that basically covers all of Killeen. And most of Harper Heights. You cannot legally fly a drone. Now, what you can do is I'm going to show you here. And this is our little old, if you want to get these programs on them. Okay, here at B4Ufly, FAA. Probably. I don't know if it'll work without the Wi-Fi connected. Anyway, here's a map of the area. It'll come up and show you, like on Google Maps, it'll have a circle in a different color, 5 miles around that airport, and 5 miles around Fort Hood. And then here, if you want to fly, you might, depending on a lot of ifs and buts, you might be able to get permission. So how high will you fly, how far will you fly, how long will you fly there, and then what you do is you push here and they'll give you the number to call it, field tower. You can ask him and he says, oh, no, I don't want you wrong here. Or you say, sure, you're far enough away, just don't do anything you didn't tell me you were going to do. So in the drones, you have to not a toy. A lot of people think it is. The ones around the house are. But once you get outside the house, you're into the FAA rules on flying. So you are considered a pilot. Here's a pilot. Now, I flew in California, and I flew with the Army here in Texas a while ago. But you have to log all your time. Every time you take off with one of these things. So all these people you see flying probably are not doing this. But
It's
you have
like
to
a bad log.
log it and keep track of it. And then, if anything ever happens, or you want to move up to the next level of license, you have to take that logbook and show it to them. Or, I think it's every month, depending on what kind of certification, what you're going to call you got, you have to send them copies of this logbook. And the big discussion now, can you send a copy that scan this, or do you need an electronic data copy, and so on. So anyway, this is one program, and it's called B4Ufly. I would highly recommend you play with it. When you get through, just take it off your computer. The other one, there's two of them I put on. The other one is called Armap. And I don't know if we don't have Wi-Fi. Anyway, it's not going to show you, but with those programs, it'll have a circle around, and then they'll overlap. Killeen, you've got an overlap between Fort Hood and Metroplex and Killeen Airport. Then it's, well, now, as you get near Dana Peak, it's a safe flight zone. So all this is considered what they call no flight zone. So, that's why we're trying to tie into the club up there at Union Grove. That is a flight zone, so you can go up there and safely do it. But to be a member of that, you have to have insurance. So that's the other thing. You're going to get into it, it's just like insurance on your car, you've got to have insurance on your drones.
Do some damage, I guess.
Huh?
I guess they can go out and do some damage.
Anyway, next month, by the way, I think I said Jack wanted